Okay. It is 3:03 p.m. on Tuesday, February 10th. I will call to order this meeting of the YCOM Executive Board. And to kick us off, I'm going to ask David if you will lead us in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Just to put on the record, we did have a citizen member of the community that came in and provided packets for each of the executive board members to review. Those have been distributed. And while we generally do have an opportunity for any public comment, we did not have that as an agenda item for this meeting. So I will ask that we do have an official agenda item for each meeting for public comment. And then just ask if there's anybody online that wanted to give any public comment, if you would raise your virtual hand so that we can provide that opportunity. I am not seeing any, so we will move into the agenda. Item 1, old business, we have none. Item 2, new business, 2A. We want to extend a welcome to Chief Wood, who is the newest representative for the city of McMinnville. And we can just go around the room and do introductions on the record. Make sure your microphone is turned on so that we're capturing the audio. And Brandon, if you want to officially.
Welcome, Chief. I'm Brandon Dross, the city manager with the city of Lafayette. I've been serving in the capacity here for about a little bit more than a year. And before that, I spent about a year on the budget committee.
Chief, you know me, Sheriff, Chair of the Executive Board.
Welcome to the board, Chief Woods. My name is David Vandewally. I represent the fire districts, and I'm a member of Carlton's Rural Fire District.
Welcome, Chief Woods. Steve Long, Operations Manager at YCOM.
Chief Wood knows me as his upstairs neighbor, Executive Director Patty Sowers. Welcome.
Thanks, everyone.
And then our county commissioner member is Commissioner David King, and he is not with us today. Item 2B, recognition of the Yamhill County Commissioner appointment. We did receive a word from the Board of Commissioners that they have continued Commissioner King in that Board of Commissioner representative seat on the YCOM Executive Board. And then item 2C, the Yamhill County Fire Defense Board took a vote at their last meeting and have selected David to continue on as the fire district's representative on the YCOM board. Since those are all relevant to the board itself and representation, if you turn to the second page of your agenda packet, there is the current YCOM Executive Board makeup. And because of our meeting schedule, technically, Brandon Dross has fulfilled the obligation of his initial selection from the small cities through January 10th of 2026. I would just look for consensus from the rest of the board that between now and our next regularly scheduled meeting in April, that we ask those small cities members to present to the board whether they are going to continue with Brandon as their representative or provide us the name of who will fulfill the next 2 years of that seat, if that's agreeable to the rest of the board.
I agree with that.
All right. So if you can reach out to all of your counterparts with the small city membership and inquire, and I'll probably send them an email as well.
Okay, I will CC you on that. Right.
Thank you. Item 2D is our calendar discussion for 2026. Also in your packet, at the very back of the packet, is the proposed calendar for the executive board for our meetings for this calendar year. If I know it's probably a little challenging to review that and just ask if there's any glaringly obvious issues for any of the board members or for the director or operations manager on availability. I would ask for myself, if you look at the front page of the agenda, it mentions our next meeting is April 14th, but if you look at this calendar, it's proposed to be April 7th, and that is to accommodate a schedule conflict for me. The 7th would be when I would prefer to meet, not the 14th, which is what was originally scheduled.
Sheriff, I have a conflict on April 14th as well.
Okay.
I would appreciate moving to the 7th.
Sounds good.
I'm fine with
My
the
calendar
proposed
shows
schedule.
clear.
Okay.
Same.
Well, we kind of take these, when we meet, we do look ahead and see if there's anything that's come up, and we can be flexible. But if this is agreeable, we don't need any formal action, just a consensus. And it sounds like I've got that from the board members that are present, that this will be our tentative 2026 calendar for this year. Item 2E is an update from the 190 agreement discussion. As I think everybody that's up here knows, either through being on the board or participating, that we had asked a subcommittee that was spearheaded by Chief Graven to take a kind of a first run at updating the 190 user agreement. And Chief Graven is online. If we can make sure he's promoted to be a presenter so that we can get an update from him on that subcommittee's work.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you,
Chief.
Chair Sheriff Elliott, and executive board members. Everybody hear me okay?
Yep, you sound great.
Yes, we had been meeting. We met several times as a user group, and we did complete the final of that, which has been presented to the board. And there's been some language changes, one of those being the removal of the somewhat at times confusing concept that the radio system was operated through YCOM. So that's been completely removed from the language of that in there, even though it didn't implicate that. There was confusion that it was, and that's housed by the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office. So there's been language updates to that, as well as the status quo of what we've been doing for the user fees and all of the user dues, and there's been an addition of user fees. And so that language has been updated in there with the percentages for each user.
All right, thank you, Chief. While we've got you on the microphone, if you have any other updates with respect to the user committee, I'll go ahead and have you make those comments now, and then we'll come back to some discussion from the board about the 190.
Sure. So the YCOM User Committee met on January 13th, and we had great attendance of agency users again, which is good to see. During that meeting, the YCOM User Committee, we discussed the understanding that the radio system is not a part of YCOM, as I indicated, and is coordinated through the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, and that we'll be having further discussion on its structure, including budget implications regarding the user fees of the radio system. I updated the committee regarding the Sheriff's Office currently working on what that structure and the user fee will be, and then I would provide them with any updates of what those fees would look like when that becomes available. There were some concerns raised about the radio communication effectiveness, particularly
Chief, I don't know if you can hear us, but we completely lost you. You just dropped out mid-sentence.
And to enhance resource allocations by sending fire units to certain venues for better coverage and emphasizing the importance of clear communication regarding unit availability among departments, particularly during emergencies, to ensure that the resources are deployed effectively. That discussion included the possibility of adjusting alarm response based on system status with a centralized alert system to improve the response times. The committee also proposed a revised orientation process for new officers to standardize training on communication protocols to make sure that everyone is using proper communication language in an effort to avoid any confusion. And we are informed that YCOM currently has a training in place for the new officers, which we've all utilized to attend a 4-hour training at YCOM. And Director Sowers had spoke of the idea of splitting that into a 2-hour at the beginning of the training for the individual and then another 2 hours at the end of their training. So that's something that has been in place for YCOM that was discussed for those as a reminder, and that will help to alleviate some of that confusion with the communication. That's all I have, and thank you for your time.
All right. I will tell you that we missed a portion of the middle of that. We just lost you altogether, and then you came back in. So I would ask, if possible, if you can stay online just listening in case we have any questions or things that come up that you may be able to provide clarification, or if it was something you talked about and we just didn't hear it, then you can fill in that blank for us.
Sure, no problem.
So I think the biggest question now for the board is to figure out what to do with the 190. I mean, we have some suggestions and a product from this subcommittee, and have all of the board members had an opportunity to review what has been produced by the work group?
I haven't received anything yet.
Okay. Have you
I
received?
believe I have the most current copy.
Okay.
I have.
Okay. So I think that first off, we need to make sure that all the board members, and I haven't spoken to Commissioner King to see if he has reviewed it. I reviewed it, and I think, I want to acknowledge the work group for getting us started on this process of updating the 190. It is going to be a complicated endeavor. And so, I don't know whether we want to have the board review and collectively then either give some further direction to the work group if we want to take it back under the executive board to continue that work. I can tell you that, some of the areas that I have some questions about is I've seen some of the draft language with respect to some of the fire dues. We don't have any draft language on law enforcement dues. And then just the process of pulling what has been the historical incorporation of the radio system financial support that's been collected through dues and then passed through to the county for the maintenance of the radio system, trying to separate that out, I think it will necessitate, the county having separate agreements or MOUs with those members. If we're talking about sending, some sort of a invoice that would be billed from the county instead of being incorporated into YCOM dues. So I think there's multiple layers of things that we need to provide direction on. And I would be curious if the board members have any recommendations on whether we just pull this back under the board now, or if we take a minute, make sure everybody's reviewed it, and then come to a consensus on further direction for the work group.
Could we ask Chief Graven a couple of questions about I'm assuming that we're talking about the 113 draft that was sent out via email is
Yes.
the one that you're speaking about, particularly because it has a a basic formula for fleshing out what fire agency contributions are computed from. And I think you were just speaking to the sheriff. There's no similar computation for law enforcement. Chief Graven, do you know why the 190 user group didn't flesh out something similar for law enforcement as opposed to fire?
From the discussions that we had, it was based upon what's currently in place, and then it would just be a percentage increase. And I thought that there was some language in there. I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me right now, but there was some language in there regarding that as far as users' use. I'll have to go back and look at that when I get a chance.
Okay. One of the things that I also don't see in the agreement is what would be defined as either of those entities. What is defined as a fire agency and what is going to be defined as a law enforcement agency? It might be helpful for application of the agreement to have definitions in the agreement in place for what is considered a law enforcement or fire agency under the agreement. Things are always changing. We could see significant changes between now and the time we reconsider the agreement again. And does a EMS only, ambulance service qualify as a fire agency? Does corrections and parole and probation fall in the law enforcement agency side of the agreement? I think that I would like to see those fleshed out. Did the committee give any thought or put any work into those aspects of the 190, Chief Graven?
As far as definitive definitions of what's defined, the list of the users is defined in there with police and fire agencies. But you're asking, Chief, for a little more definitive language of what defines them specifically?
Just to throw out a made-up example on the spot here, say the city of Sheridan decided that they were going to contract with a private ambulance service for their EMS services. How would that service fall under this agreement? Again, that may not be the perfect example, but that's just one I'm thinking of on the spot. And the same thing for the law enforcement side of the house. And I guess while we're on the topic of definitions, the very last paragraph of Addendum A, so it'd be page 14 of the draft from January 13th, talks about fees to members and non-members for services that fall outside of emergency public safety call answering and dispatch services. Again, I think that some definition of what that is for the members so that they can know whether they have redundancies and don't need to purchase some things from YCOM, or if they, want to elect to purchase them in some other form or fashion. I think defining what falls within those categories would be beneficial. I guess that may be strayed into more commentary than questions for the chief. But
No, and I think a lot of those questions are some of the same ones that many other folks are going to have. And I actually appreciate you bringing up the question about EMS because currently we don't individually or separately recognize ambulance providers in the 190. It's just all fallen under fire. And with the concerns over rural ambulance billing and what is going on, I think that if we're going to undertake this rewrite, then we should try to be as forward thinking as we can. Because, we don't necessarily get to know or control what the ambulance service areas might do, what the county ordinance may change to. They just went through an extensive update of the ASA plan with OHA. So, I think those are all valid questions. And that's why I'm kind of wondering whether or not we're to the point where this board can take on this work ourselves as the five of us, or whether we need to potentially continue work with the committee or bring in other individuals. Maybe I'll ask maybe Chief Graven, as far as participation from the member agencies, do you feel like you had good participation from the various disciplines and member agencies that are represented in the agreement?
Yes, I believe that we did. Initially, there was not, and then others were again invited to the table. So midway through, we had good representation.
All right. Well, I just know my own capacity limits for a major undertaking like this, but it is, work that we've been talking about from the executive board perspective for quite some time, getting this updated. So I think probably the most prudent thing to do since not all of the board members have even had an opportunity to review it in detail, is ask whether the board would be open to scheduling a work session next month where we just solely focus on the 190 agreement, some of the questions that the chief has raised. We can have representation from the committee that have been working on it here to provide us some feedback and just see what progress we can make on updating that draft. And then, we'll have to see how far we get and what the next steps are.
I'm on board with that. I do have a couple of our fire board or fire district members that have some concerns as well. So if you want to address them now or later, that's fine. I don't really care.
I mean, if you have anything now, I think it's good for us to.
Yeah, one of our districts is pretty adamant that they'd like to see their own spot on the board.
Okay.
Because they're the bigger district, and their needs maybe don't mirror the needs of the smaller districts. Whether that's something, I mean, it's part of the 190, the makeup of the board, so maybe that's something to visit about if anybody has ideas or concerns about that. I know, in my mind, the first thing that pops up is you take a 5-member board and create a 6-member board, and that's not always the best thing, an even numbered board. But, otherwise I hadn't spent a lot of time researching it. It was just something that was brought to me, and as their representative, I'm bringing it to you.
Okay.
Or to all of us. So, and then there was some concerns about how the percentages were calculated, but I've kind of talked, with the director, and so I think we figured out, why that is. It's just, we tried to do a more accurate way of coming up with what the call volumes are and all that, and so the numbers changed. So, anyways. But I do agree that everybody should have a chance to go over this before we really have a formal, in-depth discussion about changes.
Chief?
My initial thought was that we should send this back down to the subcommittee to give them another shot at maybe fleshing out some of these things that we discussed today. However, Chief Vanderwall brings up a concept that I don't think is probably appropriate to be addressed at that level, especially if we're talking about the composition of the board. I think that's probably something that sits at this level. Yeah. I do think he brings up a good point. They have very disparate's probably not the correct term to come up with, but it's the only one that comes into my mind at the moment. They have one member who has very, very different needs than the overwhelming majority of the rest of their members. So
at least sometimes different needs. I mean,
yeah. They have a very similar job and a very different one at the same time, right? It's kind of like comparison McMinnville Police Department to the Oregon State Police. They're very different missions many times, but there are those places where they overlap too. So if we're going to include that discussion, which I'm more than willing to take on, then I think we keep it here and schedule a work session after other members have a chance to review it.
Well, our next regular meeting obviously would not be till April 7. Go ahead, Brandon.
I'd like to address something that I was going to bring up later, but since we're talking about scheduling a meeting, would you mind if I refer to this public forum item for a bit?
Sure.
So looking at this public forum thing, and I wanted to mention this in the past, and I noticed that there's a public records request for some minutes of meetings. In my time on my board here, we have yet to ever approve meeting minutes. So before Stephen or the clerk of the board furnish those minutes, I think we need to formally approve those, because if something's being put out there for public records or information, and we have yet to approve formally minutes, or at least you have signed them in your capacity as chair, we have yet to ever like approve minutes like formally a board does. And so if they're being asked for minutes and we're giving them something we haven't seen, there's a liability aspect there that I'm concerned about. So if we're going to establish a meeting, I would like to do a special meeting and approve the minutes of recent meetings before they get distributed for a public records request.
Well, I might need a little correction, but I don't believe that we've even generated minutes because it's recorded and it is publicly available for anybody to review any of the recordings. Those are the minutes, is
Yeah.
the recording of the meeting.
Okay, so how would that work if we never actually approved? I mean, I don't know. I've never been a part of a board, even with the county, that doesn't furnish minutes. The LPSCC, the Yamhill County Transit, we've always furnished minutes. So I just worry that if something's going to be furnished, we haven't actually stamped approval for it. And if there's any type of liabilities coming from those public record communications without our formal approval, I don't know if that's a legal question or not, but I just worry from that standpoint.
I will take that to an opinion. But yes, we've always just relied upon the fact that it is virtually open to anyone for attendance, and the recording is available for anyone to watch. So we have never voted on whether that recording is approved by the rest.
And I just worry because I know public records requests can go down a wormhole, and I just want to make sure that we're dotting our i's and crossing our t's to prevent any future, liabilities. So if the county council says no, we're okay, then I'll be okay. I just want to make sure that if anything's being furnished with our names on it as a board, that we actually are okay furnishing those documents without official approvals.
I've made a note, and I will get that answer back to the rest of the board members.
Thank you.
So I'm trying to figure out whether or not there's enough time to ask the work group to do some more work and have a work session prior to our April 7th meeting. Or if we have the April 7th meeting be the work session and we give them until then to work on the items that we've discussed today.
Just got it. So thank you so much.
The only other item that we would really have for consideration in April is our budget calendar, budget committee members, and appointing the budget officer for next fiscal year, or for this budget process that we'll be going through. So does the board feel comfortable with giving the work group until our April 7 meeting to try to work on some of the, or do we want to ask for a little bit quicker turnaround time so that we can potentially meet prior to our next regular meeting?
I think if we're going to send it back down to the committee for more work, that we'd ask for a quicker turnaround. I think that would make sense. And I think that what we're looking for is probably relatively quickly remedied. However, if we're going to consider the other aspect that Chief Endwall brought up, I think that we could probably save that time and address issues in a work session by the board.
Okay.
Since the committee can't address that issue on its own, we could basically kill two birds with one stone.
Well, Chief Graven, I'm going to ask if you are still willing to spearhead this effort by the work group with another round of drafts back to the YCOM Executive Board by the 20th of March. And then do any of the board members have a conflict if we were to try to schedule something that last week of March in advance of our next regular meeting?
So are you looking at the week of the 30th of March or the week before that?
Either one. I think one of those is spring break.
I have a Richards meeting on the 25th at the same time, but other than that, I think I can make most work the 23rd to the 27th. And then the following week, I have FEMA NIMS training for 2 days in Marion County. So I'm going to be at the 31st and the 1st.
So just to align it with when we regularly meet, would Tuesday, the 24th work
Yes.
for the rest of the board?
You could make that work.
Do we have a consensus to have a work session on the 24th, and we'll see what the work group is able to work through between now and the 20th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Chief Graven, any questions?
I understand by the March 20th. I can't speak for all of the work group, but I believe that that's something that is doable. And just confirm it would be for the language of the formulas for LE, similar to what that is for the fire. And then how it's it's defined for users for fire and LE. And then more language definitively of what those are, separating, for example, fire EMS instead of having just that one language.
Correct. And then also some definitions of the final paragraph of addendum A that talks about, I guess what I'll refer to as extra services. What Chief Wood was speaking about. I think probably it would be helpful if we summarize the discussions from today and send you an email with what we're specifically asking the group to work on.
That's an ask that I would appreciate.
Would you like one of us to be there as like a liaison to them, or do you think?
I've been attending
Oh, okay.
most
Yeah,
of those
David has
sessions,
been
so
attending.
great.
I can continue that if you'd like.
Okay, cool, great.
So any other discussion about the 190 update?
No.
Okay. The second portion of 2E is the 26-27 initial dues discussion. I want to be clear that this is not a part of our budgetary process. This is not part of the any budget hearing, but we as a board have now spoken several times about the desire of many of the member entities to get information earlier on in the process for their budgeting purposes, to know how to structure their budgets, since YCOM typically we don't have a final budget until May, potentially June, and that has caused a lot of concern and challenges for some of the member agencies when we don't have final numbers for them. And so I know the director and I have spoken several times about ways to facilitate getting that information out sooner, what that would look like. And it is complicated in that we also have to have that 190 language updated so that we know what the criteria is that we're working with. And at some point, once we have everything defined, we're going to have to pick a starting place for whatever changes are coming about because of the 190. So, the director has asked me, and I know some of the member agencies have been asking what to plan for, what to budget for. What I have been responding to the director with is Well, I look at my own budget for the sheriff's office and I see what my costs have gone up from last year to this year, what I've received in budget instructions, what I know my personnel cost increases are going to be, whether it's collective bargaining language that's affecting salaries and roll-ups, whether it's insurance costs, whether it's PERS, my materials and service, my professional services contracts. I can tell you that my contract for courthouse screening is, I believe, going to have an 18% increase. My food service contract in the jail is a 10% increase. When I look at my personnel costs, depending on which division I'm looking at, they fluctuate. But I think the lowest I've come across is 8%, just with the increasing costs that we have. So I do want to have some discussion with the board about what is a number as far as a percentage that we are comfortable providing the director with and all of our member agencies with, as far as just rough planning. This is not a number that we can be essentially held to. We're trying to give some insight. My first direction would be, what's the rest of your budget doing? And plan accordingly with that. But I'd like some discussion as far as whether we even want to provide some general guidance this far in advance of the true budget process, or whether we just refer people to make their best guess based off of what they're seeing with all the other lines in their budget.
I think it's pretty obvious that you're going to have an increase just with what's happening with everybody else's budget. How much that increase is, I don't know. If I remember correctly, last year they were operating with 3 or maybe 4 positions not filled. So, if we're looking to, restaff them and get them back up to staff levels, there's a bigger increase for that than just normal operating costs. So I don't know, what the board's feeling is on that, but at some point I'd like to see them, recover some of the positions that they've had to just go unfilled.
2 years ago, when I was on the budget committee, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, Patty, but I think it was a 12% increase my first year on the budget committee. Then last year, I think it was 10%. Or I've gotten those flipped. I know one was 10, one was 12, or vice versa, correct? Yes.
We have increased 2 years ago.
Yeah.
You would ask me to guess 8 to 10.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I have a hard time approving another budget that I'll be almost over 30% in 3 years, when no other organization that we work for or work with has increased their fees dramatically that much. I really think we need to try to say, because this seems like the board, we're just gonna 10%, 15% this, and nobody's there's no accountability in that. And I feel that not a lot of people pay attention to YCOM, so it just kind of goes under the radar. But I just feel that there's got to be something done to where we at least say, hey, 5% this year, 5%. I mean, like my utilities are going up less than last year. Last year we went up about 4%. We asked our ratepayers, we're looking at probably 2.8% this year. CBA next year, our CBA contract, the COLA is not going to be anywhere near that we have it right now. Our COLA for our CBA right now is 4%. I don't see it being more than 3% for the next CBA. So I know that things are going up, but we're also at the tail end of all these increased costs going up dramatically. And I feel that we just need to give something back to saying, hey, YCOM's just not going to rubber stamp another 10% increase year over year. 30 something percent in 3 years is a lot to swallow for any agency. I look at McMinnville, and this is as a big organization. McMinnville, another 10% increase for them, 30% over 3 years is dramatically affecting their bottom line. It doesn't hurt us as much as, say, New Carlton or Lafayette, but McMinnville Fire, that's dramatic. That's going to even hurt them even more. But I also know we have an organization and a business to run with YCOM. I just think we need to kind of keep that in mind, that our increases aren't going to probably be on par with the rest of increases with utilities, et cetera. So we should really be mindful and try to keep that into the mid single digits.
I know that we always do a look back, and when we get into the true budget process, we're going to be examining those. But I do think it's important to recall that back during COVID, when YCOM was benefiting from the increase in the 911 tax, they passed all those savings back on to the member agencies, and we had rate reductions for a couple of years. And whether that has contributed to the need to increase over the past couple of years. I don't know that I could say that without going back and reviewing the numbers, but all of the member organizations that contribute to the dues of YCOM benefited for several years with substantial rate reductions when the 911 tax yielded more revenue than what was anticipated. Chief?
I don't know that at this moment I'm comfortable just throwing out a number. I think that there's some things that we want to consider before we really think about doing that. The 190 agreement and where things actually stand there, I think is a big factor for at least for me to think about before I even could consider throwing out a number. I do agree with Mr. Dross that we need to be very judicious with what we do increase if we make that decision to increase.
All right. Well, I think that, I'm going to probably ask Brandon, with his insights with the rest of the small cities. I think that when you look at the overall dues structure and you look at the city of McMinnville, the police department, the fire district, the county, and then you have all of the smaller entities. Do you have any insight from your colleagues with the other cities that is kind of where folks are at with respect to current budgeting?
Well, I don't know so right now, Dayton right now is looking at doing a public safety levy. Obviously, they've had to borrow some money to help from their general fund. So asking them for even 5 to 10% can help them. Amity's kind of in the same role. They're looking through grants for special projects. Lafayette is, we're better off financially than most cities in Oregon through, I think, our rigorous oversight in finances. I know Yamhill. I haven't talked to Shay from Yamhill in a while, Mayor Shay. I'll probably be seeing him soon here on some a water project that we're working on. But just knowing Amity and then what Dayton's going through, I think we just need to be mindful. Dayton, they're looking at that public safety and they're worried about that's even going to pass because everything that happened with their budget reductions. So what's the appetite going to be for their public safety levy? If that doesn't pass, that's going to put even bigger strain on their police costs. So could we afford 15-20%? Yeah, we could, but it wouldn't do justice of the rest of the cities if we weren't even looking at trying to scale that back a little bit. So
fair enough. Well, I think the consensus I'm hearing from the board is that all the member agencies are going to need to examine their own information, and we will provide what data we can when we have it through the 190 update process and the budget process. All right. Chief, anything else from you before we move on to the director's update? Chief Graven.
Sorry, I wouldn't go off mute. Nothing further from me.
Thank you, sir. All right, 2G. The floor is yours, Director.
I have several things to update you on this afternoon. As I have the floor, may I offer a couple comments on the budget and the pending budget process?
Yes.
I would remind the members of the board that in order to balance the budget last year, that constitute not an unfilling of 4 positions, but a cutting of 4 positions. So today we are providing the services 24/7, 365 to the center with a full-time equivalent of 11 dispatchers and 1 supervisor. We had been approved in for 13 dispatchers and 3 supervisors. So we are a third of our supervision, and we reduced our emergency dispatchers by 2 last year. Steve's going to give an update in a couple minutes about staffing, and you're going to find that we have no more position savings. We will very soon not have any openings, and we will be fully staffed, however, not fully trained. So we are still relying upon overtime in order to create a full staffing and complement any type of vacancy that we do have. So I just want to make sure that the board does understand that. So I cannot dictate the rates that PERS are going to give to me. I go to the CIS conference on the 24th of February, and they're going to tell me what my increase is for the year, and there most certainly will be an increase. My latest research is showing that to be anywhere between 7 and 12% in Oregon, and I saw Providence was a 21%. We are obliged to pay for the health insurance of our employees. We do have a union contract that says we'll pay 93% of that bill. So if that does in fact go up, or where it goes up, a zero-sum budget means that I'm cutting elsewhere, and the largest driver of our budget is personnel. So I would appeal to you and say, I don't have additional staff to cut. So that is something to consider. I appreciate Member Dross's acknowledgement that we are a business, and we do have lights, and we do have insurance, and we do have liability, and we do have materials and services. And for many years, the messaging to the members have been, we carried them through the COVID years, past 100% of the money of the 911 tax through to members, and we've also spent down our reserves, and we do not have the reserves any longer to absorb increases in our budget. So where costs go up, costs are no longer able to be absorbed. Anyway, I appreciate being able to share that with the board as we go to planning. And I also appreciate the direction of the board for me to reply to members that I don't have that information. They're going to have to seek that on their own. I will tell you that you probably will have complaints from members who, as they have asked me that question, they are very unhappy standing in my office telling me I have to put a number down. So I get that. But I don't have a number that I don't have, and we don't start our process, and our process does rely upon a budget officer from the county, and we simply go after them. And I want to renew my commitment to the board. As you know, that you've experienced, that I strategically plan as much as possible and feasible to give you as much information to make decisions about money as we go, and I will continue to do that. Thank you. Are there any questions about that? Okay, so wanted to let you know that yes, the ambulance service area plan is sitting before the Board of Commissioners now. It's currently on their agenda for approval this week. So I, as a reminder, am a member of the Ambulance Service Area Committee, and worked along with the committee to update that plan. It has been a very, very long process back and forth with OHA. With the passage of the plan, if the ordinance is updated, or if the plan is approved as submitted to the Board of Commissioners, this will be the start of the 911 centers providing some reporting twice a year out to the county as a system. So I'm excited to get that work started and talk about the performance that we do on behalf of all the citizens. I wanted to talk today, the majority of my time has been and will continue to be for as we navigate through budget and other items that are needed of my attention. I do work as the local project manager for the law enforcement records management upgrade project. It is a very large project. It's multi-year. If you'll remember, it started out in our budget last year over $200,000. A couple different points for you. It continues to be there. There will be line items for law enforcement RMS continuing in our budget from here on. Just a reminder before we start the budget process, YCOM is the client of record and does have the relationship with the vendor. So we will be seen as a client of record when they submit annual maintenance invoicing. It will come to YCOM in my name and we will invoice that out. So just a reminder, we have that in both the revenue and the expenditure lines of our budget. We have those separated out so that they can be tracked as well. And right now it is a capital project that we have. Now, there are payment milestones attached to the project because it is so large and multi-year. And right now, as far as risk mitigation as a project manager, I'm looking at two primary things. One, a compressed timeline. So as the activities and tasks are required, we're starting to watch compression to when the potential or targeted go live date is. And with that is coming constant figuring of if this gets moved, then that pushes this, then that pushes this. But we also have qualifiers attached and gating on anything that does not pass the system testing. So with that, it is foreseeable that you may see capital items in next year's budget if we haven't gotten to a milestone for this project. I've spoken with my partners, the city of McMinnville, as well as Yamhill County, to talk to them about that as they also navigate their own budget process. There's a question on that. So continuing on in records management. So just as a visual for you, last week we did functional acceptance testing, and it comes with, a legal connection on is the application providing the performance that is expected, that was in the statement of work, in the contract, as designed, as specified here. This was supposed to take 3 days last week. It took 4 days. I am right in there with our partners, not testing the product, but managing the process and communicating with the vendor. This book represents 436 scenarios that were tested as far as the records management system. 60 of those items were deferred. So when I talk to you about a compressed timeline, a deferral means either we're choosing not to test it because the product isn't ready to test those scenarios, or we're choosing not to test it because we haven't done the work in that module, and so we can't test the project. And we have a mixture of those. There's 60 of those. As far as the project timeline, there is time to complete those 60s, but it is incumbent upon the group to mark the progress of those and the responsibility to continue the forward progress all along. And then we had 8 failures, which means the product itself, the group is declaring has failed this scenario. With each one of those 8 failures becomes a ticket that goes into the vendor to let them know it's not working as designed or as desired, because it does become a conversation. And along with those failures comes a determination very soon. So right now, they're presenting a report, or they're writing their report of functional acceptance testing. They're going to deliver a document to me that says, Patty, will you sign off on this task completion? Functional acceptance testing has been completed. There's a payment milestone, one of 5, that will be triggered as soon as my signature is on that document. And now is the time where the group says, these 8 things that failed, how critical are they to our go live? And they attach gating requirements, meaning we will not do end user training until that's fixed. And as the timeline compresses and you get down towards the end in what your desired go live is, if we draw a line When we draw a line and say we will not test until this is fixed or until this works differently, I'm sorry, not test, train our people. If the company doesn't have it ready, you push your training, or you decide that it wasn't a gating idea for you, if that makes sense. So my days are filled with meeting after meeting after meeting with the vendor, with our partner agencies, with all parties involved, numerous employees, numerous contacts on the vendor side, navigating this from a 30,000-foot view. That is my forte. That is something that I do well, to look at something from a 30,000-foot view. And as a reminder, it does take a great deal of my time, which we committed to in a 3-party IGA. Just for example, today, before I came here, I spoke with the project manager, Becky Boehner, about the state reporting issue that the application has created. That's one of our failures. It causes inaccurate state reporting. This is a gated item. The parties have agreed they will not, they will not go live with a state reporting issue. However, they have opted to gate it with, we will not train on this issue. I had meetings with the company in December. The company agreed to put it agreed that it was a bug and agreed that they would fix it in a future patch that they delivered to us. Today, I received confirmation that ticket was pulled. It's been assigned to a developer. They will be writing the code in their next development cycle, which starts tomorrow, and they anticipate delivering that patch to me in early March. When I talk about a compressed timeline, early March, March 10th, all of the records clerks, our office specialists, whichever the organizations utilize, are due to be trained starting March 10th. So early March and March 10th are something that I am keeping an eye on. Now, some of these things we most certainly, all of them we can influence. Every one of them I cannot control. So right now, as a reminder, that is one of the risks that I'm looking to mitigate. I secured a meeting today with decision makers from another item. They're due to deliver us an interface. It's called Extend. It's used elsewhere in their product line, but it's not used with the enterprise product line, which is what we have. And they're developing this item. It's the thing on the street that allows a beat cop to make an electronic ticket right there on the traffic stop and hand a receipt. It's also the item that allows electronic transmitting of the patrol unit back to records management on a crash, and actually even the ability to take pictures and place that with. It's the vehicle that data goes back to records management, but nothing is stored in this interface. We don't have the specifications on that yet. They are still developing a product. We've purchased a product and they say, this is how it works over here, and we're going to design it to work with enterprise. Part of these 60 items that were deferred are 3 different modules that we believe we're going to need to set those up. My partners will need to set them up based on how Extend works. Tomorrow, we've secured a meeting with decision makers on the Extend team to explain to them that we are trying to attempt to prepare ourselves to receive the product without any type of delay. And how can we best do that? Is there work in citations and crash that we can do? Is something called Easy Street, that is traffic crash modeling, going to be used with Extend? And can we get some information on that? So that's some of the testing. Printer specifications. Both of the entities are going to be purchasing printers. You can purchase a very tiny printer that has 4.25 inches of paper that goes into it. Will the Extend product be able to print off 4.25 inches paper, or are we set to 8.5 by 11? That has a bearing on what type of printer McMinnville purchases, and the supply chain dictates when they're going to be here. Those are the kinds of things that I'm trying to help them provide the information so they can make a decision on. I confirm our training CAD environment is ready to be upgraded. We'll be scheduling that as soon as possible. And just as a reminder, the records management server resides and sits on the YCOM's network. It's within our server farm. And when I say that, that's kind of an old school way of thinking. Here's records management. The records management has increased YCOM's network by 11 servers. It's 11 servers that will make that work. I believe today CAD has about 27. And if the exact number, I can confirm that for you. I believe it's about 27. So we're talking 11 different servers that we have taken on, and they do reside in the YCOM network. I believe that is where they should be. The product suite does function better all together. So you're talking CAD, you're talking mobile data terminals, you're talking records management, field ops, informed browser, some reporting, and et cetera. Anyway, YCOM has 3 environments, and without pulling you down into the weeds, I am providing this example of what a complication this project is. YCOM has a test environment that you purchase that we've spoken about, all of us over the years. So I can take a new version of CAD and throw it in a test bed. And if it doesn't function, there is no risk to the outside world as we're working emergency situations. We are literally testing in a controlled environment. We also have a mobile test environment. So again, how is this new version of CAD going to work with the mobile that's out in the field? And we have several other products that are also in our test environment. We have a training environment. That training environment is dual purpose. It is always, but for in a major project like this, it is always the exact same version of our production CAD. It resides there in the training environment. We can put a trainee on it and they can run all kinds of scenarios, and it doesn't upset your statistics at the end of the year. They can make all kinds of mistakes. They can enter CGIS information where it shouldn't be, and it's a no harm, no foul in our training environment. It also acts as our disaster recovery. If production CAD is taken down for maintenance or goes down unexpectedly, we can switch to our training environment and restore our ability and our capabilities while production CAD is being dealt with. Within each of those environments, individual applications rely. And records management, the records management system that was purchased with this extend interface is the very newest version of what this company is offering. It's the edge, the cutting edge of development. And in order to get the performance that Extend has, everything else in the product suite needs to be brought up to that level to be able to function with that RMS. So when I say we're getting ready to upgrade training CAD to 25.9, actually today we found it's 25.10. As we're getting to upgrade that, at each time that we upgrade that, now I have to go back and grab common identity management. And we need to see if anything with the message switch where we run queries of CGIS and LEDs and DMV. And then we have to go back here and see if this other item and this other item and this other item. So we are actually, I am project managing a scenario that has multitude of products that are sequentially getting upgraded every time another piece is ready. And one cannot occur without the other one, and some is building as they go. Common identity management is one of the ones, because training is ready to be upgraded to at least the final landing page of where it needs to be. common identity management is now going to have to be upgraded in test and training. So at the end of the day, we will have one very large go live. It will be successful because we do have successful projects. Right now, will it be on time? It is currently on time, and we are watching a compressed time frame. That is your update there. Also, before I got here, we asked Central Square's project manager if he would schedule RMS pre-production to be connected to CAD. 3 of those 8 failures last week were because our CAD system is currently not ready or wasn't ready to be connected to pre-production RMS. Our partners can't do anything until we bring CAD up to where it needs to be. With that, we've also established a new RMS user group, not to be mistaken for the YCOM members user group. Certainly some of the same members, but if you'll remember the IGA that we have with the city of McMinnville and with Yamhill County Sheriff's Office indicates that we will spin up, YCOM is responsible to spin up a records management system user group that will meet not less than quarterly every year. We've actually spun that up. Nicole Height from the support services manager from Yamhill County Sheriff's Office is coordinating that group, which I appreciate. I can be a participant of the group, and we are currently meeting weekly. I will tell you every day that I am at work, I speak with Nicole Height and Brent Galloway, the 2 leads on their project, as well as numerous other, as well as my staff. My staff's #1 priority is working with the vendor to get YCOM network and resources where it needs to be so that this project continues on. And then finally, I spoke with Tim Vandewally about connecting GIS directly to CAD from the RMS system. So here's one of the complications, just to describe it as a very large quilted together project. So RMS, the records management system, has the ability to, Emily could create a call for service and give it a case number with never talking to the dispatch center. So something's happened behind the scenes. They don't have to ask me for a CAD number. They can create a case and assign it to a detective of the street crimes unit, and he can or she can start working on that. With that, when she enters the address, currently the technology of the RMS that they have, it's the address according to the spelling that Emily has or does not have, as well as the nomenclature that she has or doesn't have. Does she type out 1999? Does she say 99W? Does she call it Highway 99? Does she call it North Highway 99W? And so on and so forth. Well, when she saves that today, you have something, master indices in the RMS project that basically you just are creating this huge data vault. Well, if you want to know later on how many calls were at Walmart and what those cases were and how many times they had a theft 3 shoplift and what was the disposition of that, you need to make sure that you've got Walmart every time, no matter what. And so this product, one of the results of this upgrade will provide them with an absolute, there's only one address for Walmart, and the system is going to question how she enters an address. So my long story or example is currently that is one of our failures from last week, because when they start typing what the scenario is as I go into incident to create it, and I start typing 1411 north southeast FLEI, I shouldn't have to know that Flesh Hour in McMinnville is spelled FLEISHAUER. And is it a street, a road, or an avenue? And also, by the way, there's only one Flesh Hour in Yamhill County in our geobase. So what it's designed to do is exactly what CAD does today. Steve starts typing 1411 Southeast FLEI, and as soon as he gets to the I, CAD goes, I don't have any other street that has FLEI. Do you mean this? And it populates it. And for records management, that is incredibly important for even different reasons than it is for us. We want to send the right unit to the right location in the right amount of time. Anyway, so Tim Vandewally has spent, I will say, weeks, probably going on a month now, trying to problem solve why, when the records manager, when my partners start entering that address, nothing comes up. But when they get all the way to Flesh Hour S, it says, oh, do you mean Flesh Hour Street? Or when they get, so it's acting erratically, and it's not presenting the information it needs to. It's forcing them to go way too far to get the information that we know is an absolute. So back up the truck. This is a product that is developing because technology is exponentially, we are trying to stay up as public safety. And with that, in RMS version 25.9, which our pre-production RMS now has, the company has switched gears, and they have said, this RMS geolocator is not working as well as we want it to be. We agree. It failed. We called it a fail. It is unacceptable. We failed it and we've gated it. So that means we're at least not going to go live while this problem persists. So they've redeveloped their software and said, how about if RMS just uses CAD's GIS, because it's phenomenal. It works very well. It's tried and true for years and years and years. And they've made that change. But because it's a multi-year project, we have to adapt to all of these changes as the product improves at the same time. Or we have to say, no, thank you. We don't want that new thing, even though you identified that it was wrong here. So in this instance, we've asked the company, stop trying to improve this terrible geolocator. And we want to move forward with connecting RMS records management directly to CAD's validation, because we know it's superb. That's where we need to be. Thank you, for your time and attention with this, but I think it's important. It's been some time, about a year, since I've talked about the weight of this project on the YCOM organization. And with that, this typically would be, this is my segue. As you know, I'm a storyteller. And this is my segue into this meeting. I would spend talking to you for about a half an hour about the performance of the agency over the last year. And I am doing that work as well. And I do have performance indicators of YCOM over the last year. And what I don't have for you today, based on all of those things going on in the last week, you can see me looking for which paper do I have that in. I have started on my budget presentation, because if I don't start on my budget presentation, I'm not going to have it done by the day that you meet, whichever date that is. So here's page 3, I believe, of the director's budget message, and you can see some in hand. I don't have this ready to hand to you today. It's watermarked draft, but what I can tell you, and I want to assure you, we are paying attention to the metrics of the center at the same time. We are participating in ASA. We are participating in the subcommittee. But as a point of order with the subcommittee, I want to make very clear to this organization, or to my board, who I represent when I am there. And that is, my role in the subcommittee is to take a look at my resources and my technology and my data, listen to the conversation, wait for an ask, or if there is no ask, I have interjected, I may have something that would add value to your conversation. It's not to rewrite the 190. So I've received a lot of questions lately as members are getting what appears to them to be a final draft or a final product. And I continually tell them, this is step one. This has not came to the board yet. Why don't you have metrics for law enforcement? I recognize, I can see that there aren't any, and that's on my radar because the board's going to ask me to do a look back for law enforcement, and I have no criteria to do that for them. So I don't want you to think that that is lost on me. It's just right now I'm responding to the requests that I have to add value to their conversation, and you haven't had asks of me as far as the 190 other than to be a resource to this group. And I do believe, both Steve and I have attended, and I do believe that we've been a good partner and a good resource and a good staff position representing all of the members in their questions. Whether or not it would be data that I would interject if you said, Patty, rewrite the 190 or not. I think that's important. So the burning question about 2025, last year, YCOM processed 116,044 telephone calls. Of those, 26,307 were emergency 911 calls. It's about, it's down, it's about 2,000 down from the year prior. Actually, I think a little over 2,000. If I were well prepared for this, I would tell you exactly what that metric was. I know that it's down. Answering performance continues to exceed the industry emergency call answering standards, which are 90% of all 911s will be answered within 10 seconds or 95% within 15 seconds. YCOM last year in 2025 answered 26,307 911s within 10 seconds, 97.59% of the time. And we answered 26,307 911 calls, 98.89% of the time within 15 seconds. They continue to do outstanding work on overtime and at a reduction in staff. 2025 performance as far as administrative and non-emergency business line calls, inbound, we received 65,573. Outbound, we placed 23,994 of those calls for a total, actually, we did not answer 170 calls. It's for Steve and I to figure out why. Was it during a busy time? Did someone say, I'm going to call HHS? Whoops, that was YCOM, and they hung up? Or is that because our other lines were ringing and we didn't have people in the seats to answer them? Or our attention was over here doing something else? The total administrative calls that we processed were 89,737. The agency, as far as quality assurance and performance program, our law enforcement dispatch compliance reduced from the year prior. In 2024, we scored a 98.4% cumulative over across the agency. Last year, we went down to 98.3. We lost a point. The year prior, fire dispatch compliance scores were 99.4. Last year, they went down to 99.3. And our emergency medical dispatch in the year prior, we overall as an organization had a high compliance score, and I believe that one was 822 or 82. This year, it was an 8.82. I'm shouting out on that one, and I will internally with our training teams, because trainees get folded into this metric and they are performing the work as they have a safety net next to them, but they can affect the overall compliance of the entire organization while they are still learning and not signed off. So Garrett Hardwick is not signed off, and he is folded into this number, and he represents that our scores got better even though he was in training, and that is outstanding to our training team. So we'll be recognizing those. And something that I thought might be interesting for you that I threw out, it will be to our staff, and I haven't told her yet, of all of our emergency communication specialists, Angela Eichler She's one of our newest employees. She processed the most telephone calls last year. She alone, of 116,000 calls, she took and handled by herself 13,963 of them. Our folks are busy. The next time that we meet, I will have additional metrics for you, the ones that, I always aspire to give to you. The final update as far as metrics, I've asked Steve if he will give you an update on Comms Coach. And if you remember, this is augmenting our quality assurance program, because we are, through AI, performing quality assurance on every single phone call that comes into YCOM. So not to steal your thunder, but would you give that update now, please?
Yeah, so we started the Comms Coach project, I want to say in October. We went fully live, so out of the sandbox training mode end of December. Since then, Comms Coach has processed 2,000 evaluations, and those are separate evaluations. Our current score with that 2,000 is a 95.05 average across the board, police, fire, and medical. And with the caveat that medical, we're scoring medical in Comms Coach for the customer service, the call handling, those type of things, but all the medical calls are still evaluated with Aqua, because the program we use, ProQA, requires we use their software to evaluate. So medical calls are potentially being QA'd twice. So I brought a couple examples. You're more than welcome to come take a look at them. They are not redacted, so I don't want to pass them out and make them official records. But both of these examples, one's a cardiac arrest, one's an overdose, both got 100%, and they were both tagged by the AI software as worthy of recognition. So there's a whole paragraph on both of these, what made the call worthy of recognition. And again, most of this is AI generated. And then Darcy and I will follow up and review what the AI has scored to make sure it's accurate and fits the call. It records the transcript. So when we're looking at the program, we've got a transcript, we've got the audio, and we've got the CAD. All three are connected into the program. And just in the last week, we've now been able to attach our training CAD to the program. So as we bring trainees on, the calls that they enter in training CAD will go into their training summary for the program. So this is going to save us a lot of time on the quality assurance, since we've had to cut to supervisor roles, and it's QAing a very, very large number of calls compared to what we used to do.
I'm going to tag on to that. Are there any questions for Steve? Go ahead.
Sorry, on the program that we're using, have we confirmed everything? We're like compliant with HIPAA, with like the software that we're putting the data. I know there's a lot of issues with private sector data being put into some of the even like the top-notch softwares we pay for. So I just want to make sure that we're not liable for any type of information that's not going to be used to curate future deployment of AI, and that we're protected as a body for any liabilities with that.
Correct. They use AWS Cloud Gov for all of their transactions, and they are fully HIPAA and CGIS compliant, because it is also obviously QAing law enforcement calls as well.
And then, as a preliminary to the budget process, I do want to remind the members that at this point, we would declare this as an outstanding project that is enhancing not only our quality assurance metrics that we can provide for the agency performance as a whole, as a training for utilizing simulations, as well as performing more quality assurance as we go with less people. It's also a potential for benefiting our health and wellness, in that these two cases he may never have known about. Currently, last year, Darcy in emergency medical dispatch, I believe her quality assurance was about 350, because it's randomized. So for Patty Sowers, pick 3 of them. She also does quality assurance automatically on everything that's an echo. So all the cardiac arrest, everything. So we have targeted QA and we have random QA, but this is everything Patty did. And it can provide a report, and they have, what I want to say, settings in there that says, if it would recommend an accommodation, send him an email, notify him that this is worthy of a life-saving award. Okay. And with that, why I bring that up is, remember, this was free up until now. Steve went out, we convinced the Oregon Department of Emergency Management that this product would benefit all 911 PSAPs around Oregon. We got them to agree to give us a grant. They paid every dollar of it. We only have staff time into it. They paid that on the agreement with us that we would provide a presentation at project's completion. We are officially live as of January on the project. Our year, well, it's up for discussion with the company. We've been using it since August, September. I'm going to tell the company my subscription started in January. We'll see where we get. They want to get all of Oregon. Of course they do. My budget is going to have a component in here because OEM is not going to pay for it next year. So it's a blessing, and it's unfortunate that it costs thousands of dollars, and it will be a line item in our budget. And if you ask me to cut the budget, that's something that'll have to be looked at, because our service levels have been proven by this product. I would like to continue proving the service levels in the training that we're doing. I believe it has brought our organization added value in the areas of liability, and training, all of the things that we've mentioned. It is a good service to our citizens, and it is not an essential need. And cuts to the budget will require essential need. With that, are there any other questions for me? I apologize for running right to the, but are there any questions for me or Steve? With the packets that were given to you at the beginning of the meeting, the subject of text to 911, I just want to assure the executive board that YCOM has went through text to 911 as fast as was possible for our organization, integrated text to 911. As of this date, we are live with AT&T. We'd be happy to reach back out to the citizen and let her know that her telephone, if she's AT&T, she could place a 911 text directly to YCOM. The other three carriers, the big carriers, have not contacted us yet. And OEM had told us to expect within about 90 days. They have 6 months, according to the FCC. So we are shocked, but AT&T is the only one that has came up. You will not see a public service announcement on YCOM's part, because I have no idea how many citizens out there only have AT&T. We most certainly could put something on our website that says, if you have an AT&T phone, you can text 911 now. Think about that, because right now, I have no idea how many citizens in our service area have AT&T, and they are the only ones who would be contacting me via text to 911. And we have to wait for these carriers to do the work to come up.
When you reach out to the concerned resident, is there a way, like, if this person doesn't have AT&T, like, and I know when we did the tour of the facility after I came on the board, if like somebody calls and they hang up, or like somebody calls and just starts talking, like, is there an assurance that we can say, hey, like, you will be heard regardless of anything that happens? Because I know if somebody calls 2 or 3 times as a hang up, you guys will automatically, I think, send somebody over there or like flag it. So maybe there's a way we can assure them that even though if they can't text, if they call or they make attempts to call, we will be triggered by that. Because I'm disturbed that there's a 30-minute delay in getting help. And if they would just called and maybe had a I don't know, just maybe there's a way to let them know that we can support them regardless.
100%.
Yeah.
We would support every citizen regardless. We do follow up on phone calls that are hang up calls and open lines or someone pressing a character. But I would remind you that we have Oregon Relay, and that is a relay service meant for callers who are hearing impaired, deaf or hearing impaired, or some type of disability, and the citizen cannot place the call to 911. That's what the relay service is for. And we are accustomed to communicating with them to get the help to the citizen. Yes.
Great, thank you.
Yep. So we will take a look at it and see how we might assist and speak with Emily and maybe coordinate our effort on what we might do. The final thing that I will say is, as the board adopts your calendar for the year, that will go on YCOM's website. We did make that change last year, and we put a placeholder for those meetings on there, and then add back the Zoom link as the Zoom links are created. So that will be on YCOM's website. That's a lot, and that's all I have.
I wanted to ask, I thought I recalled a conversation that we had offline. Was there another cell provider that is a name nobody's ever heard that actually had responded? J2 Global.
I
Yeah.
couldn't think of it, otherwise I would have said, yeah. I think you said they're out of Florida?
Yeah, mostly out of Southeast America. Florida is where they seem to be most, but because one of their subscribers could be in our area, they completed the testing process with us, and that was last month.
So yes, we are live with AT&T and J2 Global.
Do we know how many carriers there are? I mean, I'm kind of obliterated. I don't know.
No, I was provided a list by Oregon Department of Emergency Management, actually by Lumen, and Lumen said you must notify these carriers. And I sent notifications to the entire, I would say, I don't know, a dozen, 15.
And I think some of those actually, like, I think it's Metro PCS, they use T-Mobile, right?
Right.
So it would be the same, it would be different companies, but the same telecommunications line. So it would be a redundant.
Correct.
Company to
And I don't think Metro PCS would be on the list. It's just T-Mobile, because that's who they connect through. Right.
Or whatever it is.
Correct.
And then I stole his thunder already. We do have a new employee starting on February 24th, 26th. I've done it all day. The pay period starts on the 24th. She's starting on the 26th. And we also have another one who is in the very final stages of the hiring process, fingerprints, occupational medicine, CGIS background. They've passed their psych in their full background, and we'd anticipate bringing on shortly after March. And with that, every position in the organization is full.
Cool.
All right. Any other questions for the director and follow up? Okay. Thank you for the update, particular regarding the RMS project, because I know from in-house how large of a project that has been and the demand for time. So it's exciting that we're closer to the end than we are to the beginning.
It is, and thank you. And I appreciate that. And I thought it worthy. This time of year, we do a lot of work with our fire districts approaching fire season. And we will continue to do that, but it will be more scheduled because of the other activities that are all scheduled in the compressed timeline. And so we've begun 2 different PSAs to fire members if you're wanting to review your responses in December. And now is the time to review those, because we do have this major project going on for our law enforcement entities that we need to budget our time in.
All right. So I will just give the reminder that we will have a work session on Tuesday, March 24th. And same time work for everybody, 3 p.m. And then our next regular meeting will be Tuesday, April 7th, here in room 32. Nothing further. We will adjourn at 4:38.
Chief Wood, they're not usually this long.